up, everyone? It is your girl Gel Beauty 87 here, aka Grace, and today I decided we're gonna rank all of my Oden's eye palettes because I haven't done this for like, I believe it was a year, or it might be over a year. I don't remember if it said 2021 I did this or 2022, so I figured we just go ahead and rank them right now. So I have, I think it's 19 palettes I just counted, and I left one at home, so when I get to that palette I'm gonna just show y'all a picture of it. And I can't believe I left it because I literally had went in that drawer right before I got ready to leave and somehow still left that palette behind. I don't know what I was thinking, but alas, we gonna get into it. So of course y'all know Auntie Tina is gonna be in this ranking because she lives in the background. Miss Tina's fancy face here. So without further ado, girl, let's get into it. So this is the one I ranked last, so this will be number 19. I'm pretty sure I had 19. And this is the Alva 2 Mini Forest palette. So this is my least favorite out of all the minis. There's nothing wrong with the color story of it or anything, but it's just like compared to all the other palettes they've come out with, this is obviously the one I would reach for the least because it has a neutral shade, it has this one blue shade, and then I don't necessarily crazy about the split pans, and I feel like it's just not a cohesive color story for me. And my preference is I got rid of the other one I had. It was a blue one if I remember correctly, so I got rid of that and just kept that one and a couple of other ones. So number 18 is going to be the Saga Freya. If you all remember, this is my least favorite collection from Oden's eye. This one is the Freya palette. Yeah, I think it's just called Freya. Sorry, called Tears of Freya palette. So I ended up getting this one when they had a sale during the holidays, just to kind of round out my collection because y'all know I love their quality at the end of the day. So it has nothing to do with the quality, it's just the color stories of the palette that weren't appealing to me. As you all can see, this is definitely not a color story for me. It has a lot of neutral, it has these weird reddish orangey peachy type shades. The only thing that excited me in here was like the purples, and there's not that many purples in here, so this was just a mess one to me, but I wanted to have it to round out my collection because I do talk about Oden's eye quite a bit, so I felt the need to have it in my collection. So there you go. Next I have the Saga of Freya. This is chapter 2, the cat with the golden carriage, or the cat's breath palette. So this is what she looks like on the inside. As y'all can see, this is a little bit more my color story. Not that I'm crazy about the oranges in here, I'm more concerned about the greens, but the green and the minty greens and the oranges go pretty nice together, and you see you got a couple of like neutral tones. So this was the one I originally picked up from this collection, even though I wasn't crazy about this collection, but like I said, like I like their quality and I usually review their stuff, and I figured you all expected me to. So this was the palette that I liked the best out of all the ones they had. They had one that was like a book shape that had two had a pattern on each side of it. That was number 17, sorry if I didn't say. So number 16 is going to be the Nars palette. I actually really like this palette. They actually reformulated it and made it in new packaging. So during the holiday, I'm sorry, their new formula and shapes. So during the holidays, I am going to pick up the new one, and then I can give this old one to one of my cousins so they can try out Oden's eye formula, because I think they only got that 5-pan palette I sent, and since there's 2 of them, now there'll be 2 palettes in each one, and we can pick it, and then I'll mail it off during the holidays like I normally do. Every holiday, like whatever stuff doesn't get purchased off my card that I'm willing to give them, I'll just package it all up and mail it to their grandma, and then she'll, you know, like they'll go through it and pick out whatever they want. So this will be one of the ones that goes in there, because during the holidays I'm definitely picking up the new Nars palette along with whatever holiday palettes they come out with. Now hopefully y'all do the same and pick up the holiday palette, because I know some of y'all told me you were sad that you didn't get the holiday palettes, and I'm sad for you because I love me some Oden's eye, so I was just like Okay, so number 15 should be the Sea Talk palette from Oden's eye and Lauren May Beauty. I love Lauren. I was so happy that she got this collab, but at the same time, y'all know this isn't really my color aesthetic. Like the neutrals and like random pops of color and the random blues. Like I like the majority of the palettes, like this part right here, and I don't really care about them much, but it's like this kind of has to help make it cohesive, so it's not as exciting to me as the other 2 that came out just based upon the color story. The other 2 color stories are more my cup of tea, so that's why this one's ranked so low down. But she did have some fun shades that she came out with in this particular palette. It's just because she's more of a neutral girl now as opposed to a color girl, that's why hers got ranked low out of all the, you know, collab ones I have. You just gotta be real about it. Next, I have the Solomon 2 palette. If you all remember, the first palette I reviewed on my channel from Oden's eye was the Solomon palette, the original one, because I thought it might be similar to the Sailor Moon palette from ColourPop, which I later found out was not. And a lot of you all told me that I was the first black creator you saw like showing Oden's eye, so that always, when I see this palette hold anything Solomon, it always makes me think of that. But this is what she looks like on the inside. I've actually been using this with other palettes in addition to using it on its own. I used it with another palette to create a really nice look. I think it was the Seahorse palette I used to create this to create a really nice look with that palette, or it was the or was it the Paint Me Chrome palette from Playing Makeup by Yolanda. I don't know. I know I use this palette to create a gorgeous look for some other stuff though. So, and it works okay on its own. I'm not necessarily crazy about the color story of this one though. I think it's because of the orange. Y'all know I just don't like orange, so I think that's what like holds me back from ranking this one higher, because it has nothing to do with the quality. It's just color story wise, I'm not really feeling the orange with these tones. So that's my gripe with that one. What number are we on? Good Lord, I don't know. But next, this is the Urge palette. So I know a lot of people love this as a mini palette. I feel like this one pairs really nicely with the Danessa Makeup Corners palette, which you'll see in a few moments. And that's actually the one I left at home. So that's the one I'm going to have to show you the picture of. How I left that one, I don't know. But yeah, this is a favorite of mine when it comes to the smaller ones. I told y'all with that first one, it's like the color story doesn't really speak to me. This one speaks to me more because I got this darker shade right here. I got this dark shade right here. I got this fun green and this light mint. So it's like if I didn't want to use these shimmers in the inner corner, I can use this fun weird minty shade in the inner corner. I could use this for my crease. That's my outer V. That's my lid, and I feel like it would just do an excellent job for a quick grungy smoky look if I was on the go and I had an emergency. I needed to get out the door but I wanted to still look somewhat presentable or true to me. Next, I have the Skewed palette. I know a lot of people actually did not like this one. I actually really like this one. I'm pretty sure this came out with the Nars collection. This one, the Urge, and it was one other one I ended up not getting. But I really like this palette. I feel like this would pair nicely with Tina the Fancy Faces, the Hummingbird palette here, along with the Planet Spirit palette from, what is it, Betty Bean? Or Betty Jean here on YouTube. So I like this one and put it higher up because I feel like I can still pair it with other things, even though it is an all shimmer palette. I know, right? But it went in front of the other one just because I know I can pair it with so many other palettes from Oden with the great quality of colorful mattes that they have. That's why it got ranked a little bit higher than the Urge one, because I feel like with the Urge one I can only pair it with maybe UOMA Beauty's palette, and the one we're about to talk about now was the Giant Wolf's palette. So this is the Giant Wolf's palette from Danessa Makeup Corner. For those of you who weren't on YouTube when her collab came out, and I know I talk about teens a lot, but Annette, along with someone named Judy, came out with the collab at the same time Tina did. So Annette is going to take the spot we are talking about now. As you can see, it's a gorgeous grungy color story, and now you see why I said the Urge palette would go nicely with it, because I feel like the Urge palette would pair really nicely with this palette right here. It's stunning. You cannot buy this palette anymore unless you're going to buy it from Macao or Poshmark or somewhere like that, and people are charging like an arm and a leg on there. So I personally would recommend you buy it there, but if you really want it, that's the only place you can buy it, unfortunately. So that's that. Next, I have the Flora Story palette. This one was done with Makeup Just for Fun. I believe her name is Amanda. She's friends with my girl Karen Harris here on YouTube. You can use code Cage Makeup to buy any Oden products. Random side note, but this is what it looks like on the inside. I feel like this one would pair really nicely with Angie's palette. And if you all remember, I did a palette match with all three of these palettes pairing with other influencer collabs, funny enough, and made them work nicely. So Lauren's palette I would pair with the Giant Wolf's palette that I just showed you all as well. But this palette I pair a lot with Angelica Fitch or Angie's palette here on YouTube for looks. Not that this one can't be paired on its own. It works nicely on its own. I just prefer to pair it with Angie's palette a lot of the time, because it's like I want more of a pink and purple look, not always a purple and green look. So that's why it landed where it landed. Now, next is the Hella palette, of course, because I just talked about the palette to pair it with. So of course I had to put this palette next to show it. So as you can see, this is the packaging. This is what it looks like on the inside. To me, this palette was a little bit of a shock to me. I understood the pink and the grunginess at the bottom, but the greens, I guess, is what I was confused about when it came to this palette, because I was like, I don't feel like I see her wear a lot of these tones, but obviously she couldn't recreate the same palette that she did with Kaleido, so I understand her coming with a different color concept. And I do feel like I see her, like I said, I feel like I saw her wear pinks a bit, but I just feel like I didn't see as many greens. But I still like the palette. I still like the color story. As you can see, it's quite high up. It's in the top, what, 5 or 10, if you will. So it's a good palette. You can't get this one anymore either. I ended up getting 2 of them. I gave one to my friend though, because she was really in love with the shimmers in. I almost dropped it, y'all. That's what that fumble was. She's really in love with the shimmers in this palette. When I showed it to her, because I was at work watching the video for the reveal, and so I gave her one, and she was all excited about it, and I was like, yes girl, I know, like, it's fire. So I had to, but I calmed myself down and went to one. So next we have the Jewels and Gems palette. Sorry, Jewels and Gem. I always want to say gems because I feel like it should be gems, not just gem, but whatever. This is what she looks like on the inside. I feel like this is a nice neutral grungy palette. Again, I feel like this is one you can pair with the Next Makeup Corners palette, and it will give you really nice looks. I was thinking about possibly pairing this with the Flora's, what is the Flora's Flora Story palette that I just showed you all. I figured this might pair nicely with that as well too, so I might have to do that this week and see how that works out. But the quality of this is nice. The color story is nice. I feel like it's a more muted color story, if you will, compared to some of the other color stories that Oden's Eye has. I feel like they usually have a tendency to put lots of color and then like a couple of neutrals in there for people who want to be able to wear it every day. So that's what's going on with that. Next, I have the Stone and Rock palette. Of course, y'all know this one was going to be higher up than that one just because of this shade right here called, what is it, High Spirits. I'm obsessed with the shade High Spirits in this palette. It is one of the most beautiful shades that they have in the palettes that I've seen in a while. A nice little duochrome, that like wet metallic look on the lid that I really like. So that's why I really was excited about this one. And I like the shade Frenzy as well. It's got like that frosty blue green shimmer effect to it with the iridescence going on. So it's a really nice palette. If you like green tone palettes, I definitely think that you would like this green tone palette, especially with those couple of special shades I just talked about. I really enjoy this. I know I compared it to some other palettes and gave you a video on why you didn't need to buy the palette per se, and I always do that because I don't necessarily want you to just run out and buy everything you see just because it looks nice. But I end up buying a lot of stuff because I do lots of videos for the brands, and sometimes you all want to hear my take on certain things, and if I like the palette, even if I have something similar, I'll go ahead and get it because I know the quality is going to be there because of the palette it is. So now that was number 5. So now we down to the top 5. So 5 was one of the newer ones, and the rest of them are going to be newer and older ones. So number 4 is the Planet Spirit palette from Baddie Bean or Betty Jean here on YouTube. And this is her Planet Spirit palette. Y'all knew this was going to be number 1 out of all the collabs that came out this year from Oden's Eye. I feel like you just knew because it's me we talking about. I feel like you can do a cute green and pink moment here, or you can do a nice sunset eye. So it's like cover this up and you got a nice sunset eye. Cover this up and you got a cute little AKA moment, your greens and your pinks. And I feel like she did a great job with this color story. The only thing is, for people like me who like a darker outer V moment, I feel like you can't get that from this. You get mainly monochromatic looks. So if I'm in the mood for a monochromatic look, I would use this. But most of the time I just pair this with another palette. And I feel like y'all already know what palette I pair it with. I feel like you should already know what time it is. I mean, the woman lives in the background of all videos. Of course, Hummingbird is going to be number 3 because it's giving I'm living. I love to pair Hummingbird with the one I just showed you, Planet Spirit. I mean, my palette is dirty and filthy, and look at all the dips and everything going on here. Like, look at this dip in Fancy, and then the dip I have in Hummingbird itself. And then I have a little bit of a dip in Feathers, and I actually have a little bit of dip of Swallowtail, which is weird because y'all know I'm not really big on orange, and I got a dip in Tropics. Like, it's so many dips going on in this palette. There's a dip in Lagoon. There's a dip in Hibiscus. Like, there are so many dips throughout this palette just because I love this palette. I was so glad that somebody finally gave Tina the Fancy Face the opportunity to make a palette, because I feel like she's been out here killing it for years and people didn't appreciate her and all the hard work she put in. So like, y'all, I had 3 of this palette. I kid you not. That's how much we support Tina the Fancy Face in this household. I had 3 of this palette. And I still have a backup of this palette because I don't want to run out of the shade Fancy. So I have an extra palette in addition to this one I use now, just because I love Tina the Fancy Face so much and was just elated that she got a collab. She since had another collab since then. It's one with Sydney Grace. It's called the Tropical Color palette. And as soon as I saw the palette, I was like, yeah, this is Tina the Fancy Face all day. That's what this is. So I have that palette as well, and I'll try to remember to link the playlist up above. I think I have an Oden's Eye playlist, so I'll try to put it up above, and if you want to see any stuff I've done with Oden's Eye, you can. So number 2 is the Christmas Eve palette. I feel like y'all should have known what was coming at number 1. Every time I rank something involving Oden's Eye lately, like, these 2 palettes are number 1. So this is Christmas Eve. If you did not get your hands on this palette, I am so sorry. I gave you all alternatives to this palette. I did a whole battle when this palette first came out, showing you a palette that was really similar. So just in case they didn't restock and you couldn't get your hands on it, you could still make similar looks and you could still get a palette that had similar color stories for that vibe and that holiday, and then fake it till you make it, girl. I don't know. I have the one that's a dupe for this one sitting right next to me, so I'll go ahead and show that one. The one for that's number one, unfortunately I did not bring that palette with me, and unfortunately they don't make it anymore. But this is the Whistler Snow Lodge from Nomad, and as you can see, it has a good amount of the same colors. Like if you cover up the, you can see Adriangameover in the mirror, y'all. But if you cover up the bottom row, it's literally the same palette. So if you didn't get your hands on this palette, just go ahead and get the Nomad Whistler Snow Lodge palette, and you'll be hooked up right there. So that was number 2 for me. So of course we know which one is number 1, right? The Merry Christmas palette. So I just like the Merry Christmas one a tad bit more than the Christmas Eve one. I guess because I feel like it's true traditional Christmas, but with like a twist, because the pink is always what makes me think of it being a twist, and like the orange. But when you think about it, it's just like they give you the traditional greens at the top, and then when you cover up the bottom, it's more like a warm tone like moment with a pop of pink. So it's a warm tone moment with a pop of pink, where you can make like a smoky eye warm tone situation, and then they give you more of a traditional green with an interesting green neon shade to make a look. So when you look at it from that angle, it's like if you can find those similar tones in your collection, where you find like a traditional green monochromatic palette, like maybe just pull out the pistachio palette and it'd be somewhat similar to this from BH Cosmetics, and then the bottom is more of like a fiery smoky red palette. If you have a red tone smoky palette and you don't care about the pop of pink, then you will have some similar stuff in your collection. So just try to look at palettes in a different way sometimes, and then maybe you don't have to buy as many like I do. I buy them to give you all reviews and to, you know, like talk about these types of things, so I can help you save the coins even if I already spent them. But that it was my ranking of all my Oden's eye palettes. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Remember, you all are diamonds, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Be blessed, girl. Bye.